Jim Nagy comes out with a statement in an interview, and a lot of Oklahoma fans are kind of misinterpreting what he might be saying, and I may be totally wrong too. And I think a lot of people are very critical of Jim Nagy. And when you look at the track record of what he's done since coming to Oklahoma, specifically, I think certain transfers like Jaden Ott, and keeping guys around like David Stone that wanted to transfer out and was able to be a huge part in talking to him to keep him around. And we all know what kind of big time, star that David Stone is capable of being. So, I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are very kind of critical of him, and I'm not really sure why. I don't know what you see from Jim Nagy and what he's done, the staff that he's built around him, and it causes you to have questions about him. But I've seen a lot of uproar on social media. I've responded to a few just very lightly. I usually don't get into arguments or back and forth a lot on social media. So this is the way that I do it. I come on here and I give my thoughts. First, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'll kind of share my thoughts of what Jim Nagy was saying. And first we'll go into this interview and listen to what he has to say. And I'll kind of break it down for my thoughts on what he's saying here in this interview. He was on the Triple Threat and talking about his transition into Oklahoma, and he talked about how a lot of teams are going to this quote unquote NFL style system, and he said there's a lot of ways that because of his NFL style that is why Oklahoma brought him in, or his NFL background, I should say, and Oklahoma brought him in because of his knowledge and the system that the NFL has in having guys, being able to recruit guys and being able to scout guys and find the diamonds in the rough. That is what it is. The NFL is all about, is trying to find the guys that came out of high school as a 2 or 3 star and try to turn them into a 5-star in the NFL. And because guess what? Most 5 stars, though they may work out in college football, most 5 stars don't end up making it into the NFL and making it very far. You think of past 5 stars that have gone on to the NFL. Think of Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he's been a great, been good, but he hasn't been great. He hasn't been that 5-star talent, even that you saw in high school or in college. So there's obviously a disconnect between the levels. And that's what Jim Nagy is kind of explaining, that there is a difference in trying to recruit a guy based on what others are telling you and being able to recruit him based on what his true value is. I'm going to play this clip real quick that I saw, and we'll kind of listen to what he has to say.
Value it just like we would in the National Football League, and that's where you find your value. What we saw this spring, which I think was a really good way to do it, is we graded the players on our new scale. And then when you get to OV season is when you see where you can get value. So
real quick, I'm going to pause it here. And I don't want to, break it up too much, but right there, he's saying that he's kind of got a new scale. He's got a scale, a system that he wants to put into place that is unlike the way that you would normally recruit. I think a lot of the past, it's not completely just looking at the stars and going after a guy because of the stars. And really all coaches would tell you, no, that's not what we do. No coach would say we look at a 5-star ranking and say, yeah, that's what we want. And we're looking for that 5-star ranking. I think most coaches would tell you, no, what we do is we look at the player, and if he's a higher star, most of the time that just means that there's going to be more drawn into him. But let's go ahead and play a little bit more.
Right, because I think what's going to set the market for a lot of these players in terms of what they're being paid and what agents expect to be paid is the star system, right? I think 5 stars want to get paid like 5 stars. So when you get into the OV season, we might have the same grade on a 5-star and a guy that's a 3-star. And when you look at where they're taking their OVs to, if they're going to Ohio State and Oregon and Texas A&M, that's going to be a certain market, right?
Right.
But then if the same graded player is getting offers from some group of 5 schools, we know what direction we're probably going to go because you're looking for that value. If you look at National Football League rosters and dig back into their high school backgrounds, man, that league is littered with 2- and 3-star players.
Yeah.
So right there, I mean, that kind of tells you what you need to know from what Jim Nagy's talking about here, is that we're not going to grade it based off the star system that we see in the recruiting sites. You look at On3 Rivals; those are your big ones, and look at where they're putting him. 247 is another big one. We're not going to look at those star ratings necessarily. This new system, what he's not saying is what he's not saying is that we're going to start to rebrand the star system, that we're going to try to go after 3 stars because they're worth less money. We're trying to save money. I think a lot of Oklahoma fans are looking at this and saying, so Jim Nagy is basically saying we're not willing to pay the NIL money to these 5 stars. That's not the case. What he's saying is we're going to look at recruiting basically the same way that we did before, but we're going to be a lot more open to it because we're not going to judge a player. For example, there's been a couple of 3 stars that Oklahoma has either targeted or already gotten in the recruiting in the 2026 cycle that are much higher rating when you look at it from the system of step back and look at who else is going after them, because there's other players that have been recruited by these big programs like he mentioned: Ohio State, Oregon, Texas A&M. If Alabama's going after a player and he's a 3-star, guess what? That probably means that he's better than what that 3-star rating is showing. And when we start to get into the OV season, that official visit season, when we start to see that he's visiting these other big-time programs that are throwing 5-star type of money at him, then, hey, this 3-star might be better than just a 3-star rating that is given by 247 or On 3 Rivals. And so he's not saying that we're not willing to pay the 5 stars 5-star money. What he's saying is some 3 stars are going to start getting paid 5-star money because there's a lot of very good recruiting teams like Ohio State, Oregon, Texas A&M, the teams that are used to bringing in the 5-star talent. And I'm not talking about just the 5 stars on the ratings, but the guys that all of a sudden, you see a 3-star guy and he's like, man, why was he rated at a 3-star? And there's been plenty in the past. So what he's saying is if all of those teams are going after this 3-star guy and offering him 5-star type of money, that probably tells us that he's a lot better than just the 3-star that's on his rating by these other recruiting sites. So that's what Jim Nagy's trying to say, and he's building a new system that we're not just going to look at the star system that has been given to him by 247, On 3 Rivals, all those. Instead, we're going to look at what is his value out in the market, and that is the NFL system. The NFL has a system built up to where you're not going to pay a player that's not going to be able to contribute too much to your team. You're not going to pay him millions upon millions of dollars, at the highest rankings. For example, Derrick Henry gets paid really good money as a running back because he's a really good running back. Same thing with Saquon Barkley. The market is set so high for him because he is such a good running back and because he's able to contribute. Now, a lot of this is kind of speculation. You do want to rely on the scouting system of old, seeing what their star is. Hey, they're a 3-star. Why are they rated as a 3-star? Is it because of other factors? And again, this is something that I want to bring, an expert that understands that star system better than I do, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not a recruiting specialist. I don't understand the system extremely well, but I do know that there's 3 stars, even 2 stars. Cam Ward was a 0-star and then was a runner-up as a Heisman. That just goes to show that the star system is flawed in some areas, and you can't blame that. For example, Cam Ward, the reason why he would have been a 0-star and not getting big-time offers from big-time schools was because in high school he didn't really throw the ball. In high school, he wasn't that dual-threat quarterback, that quarterback that's able to put beautiful touch on the ball. He wasn't that coming out of high school. So why would we rate him higher coming out of high school when all we saw was read option and run the ball type of play from him? Instead, somebody looked into the recruiting and saw, hey, Cam Ward is actually a pretty solid player that we see some potential with. Let's see if we can build something out of him. And they turned basically a 4 or 5-star out of that 0-star. And that is what Jim Nagy is trying to say. Hey, somebody else might see something in a 3-star, 2-star even, and see something in him and say, hey, there's something special. I want him. And all of a sudden now we have to say, why are they wanting him so bad? Let's try to dig deeper. That's what Jim Nagy's trying to look at here. in my opinion. I might be totally wrong. I'd love to have Jim Nagy on to explain that to me a little more into depth. But if you listen to that entire interview, this is just a clip that's going around, and I think it's got a lot of Oklahoma fans misunderstanding what he's saying. So it's not that we're unwilling at Oklahoma to pay 5 stars what 5 stars are worth. It's sometimes there's a 3-star that's worth the 5-star money because they're rated wrong in the system for whatever it may be. So we're going to start to use this new system to try to find those diamonds in the rough easier, and by using the market system as that new rating system. So we're not going to focus too much on the 2, 4, 7 5-stars. We might be getting 3 stars in, and we might have more 3 stars than 4 stars. But that's because we find something specifically valuable in those 3 stars. And there's many other teams as well. For example, you look at some of the players that have committed to Oklahoma in the 2026 cycle that are only 3 stars. They're 3 stars, but they're getting recruits. For example, the Jandro brothers, they were getting offers from other big schools. Those are 2 players that are 3-star players, but there's a reason why other big schools are trying to go after these guys so heavy. It's because they see something special in these guys. And so that's what Jim Nagy's trying to bring to the table. And you can be critical. You can have your opinion on Jim Nagy. You can have your opinion on Oklahoma sports, and dive in and say, hey, I don't agree with the way they're going about things. But I think to judge what they're doing before it's even brought to the table. For example, this season, you won't see too much from what Jim Nagy was able to put into place. I think you're going to start to see that 2 seasons from now really heavily. Next season, you'll start to see a little bit of it play into factor whenever you start to see him really be able to have an entire portal season, really an entire 2 portal seasons to work, because we really only saw part of 1 portal season from Jim Nagy so far. And so I think when you start to see him put this into effect, I'm not saying what he's saying is right. I agree with him. I think that's the right way to evaluate guys in today's system, in the day of the transfer portal and NIL, and having to look at guys. And it's obvious, too. I think you have to open your eyes and recognize that there are diamonds in the rough that have just completely gone off the chart. I mean, they have gone on to a smaller school and then transferred up to a bigger school for a reason. And there's a lot of guys that are that way, that they weren't really recruited very highly because the coaches were looking too far into that normal recruiting site ranking rating, rather than looking at what the true value is. And now that the NIL era is here and we're able to see more of a money factor into it and see, hey, they're offering him more money over here. They're offering X amount of dollars. That's a higher amount than what they would be offering even a 4 or 5 star. Why are they offering that? And start to dig into that. So hopefully that explains it a little bit. Again, I know that not everybody's going to agree with me, and not everybody's going to agree with what Jim Nagy's trying to say. From listening to the entire interview, that's what I gather from it, is that 5 stars aren't always 5 stars. So why are we going to pay a 5-star player 5-star money if he's really only worth 3 or 4-star money? Why not go after the 3 or 4-star and get a better value out of that 3 or 4-star? Or sometimes find that 3 or 4-star that really should be rated up at a 5-star. And that happens a lot. That has happened in the past. There's plenty of examples that we could bring out, and we could go on and on about those examples. But ultimately, I think this system is the way that it should go. And I think a lot more teams are going to listen to what Jim Nagy has to say and see his system that he's building up. A guy that we also have to recognize, not only does he have NFL experience, but he's also got years of experience of piecing together the Senior Bowl and seeing specific players that maybe didn't even have a great career shine and do something big and then make it into the NFL. And all the connections that he has, I think we have to put a little bit of trust in him. Although I totally understand people being skeptical, because you have to be skeptical about these things. But I think Jim Nagy, what he's putting together, should work at Oklahoma. And I think you're going to start to see this being put into place at a lot more schools in the future.